Oh, hello, and welcome. Just pulling up my slides here.
I think we should open with a round of Kumbaya.
Absolutely. You lead, and I'll be your backup dancer.
No. My daughter's last workplace, they used to, their company morale was so low that they would get together in circles and everybody would have to chant "Happy to be here."
Oh, geez, like that makes a difference.
Right?
If you have to mandate that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a little light attendance. I think everybody's still celebrating Turkey Day.
Yeah.
Well, understandable. Lots to be thankful for, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the November 2023 Policy Forum. For any of you that haven't met me, and I find it hard to believe that anybody hasn't, but I'm Jen Wisdahl, and I work in policy here at FASD United, along with my partner in crime, Susan Shepard-Carlson, and Chris Melfi, who's off camera today because we've got some exciting news to pass along about why there's nobody in the FASD United office right now. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So Tom, do you want to give any updates on the organization?
Well, you know what I want to say, just coming off of Thanksgiving is, you know, as the year winds down, is to thank everyone. I mean, I see, you know, Carl, Kathy, Melissa, as always, so many of you done so much great work this year. It's really been spectacular. We are grateful. And the FASD United team, the same. Susan's leadership, Mike Anderson's with us today under his leadership on the development side. We are going to have close to a 100% increase in programmatic funds. Now, we need also the support so we can do the work that Jen's talking about, this policy work. And so as I think about Giving Tuesday yesterday, certainly I hope that you will think, if you are able and you give funds to your favorite causes and charities, I hope you'll think about FASD United. You know, maybe more importantly, your local organization, if you're part of an affiliate, of course they need support. So that's part of the giving season, not the only part. I think the fellowship of us all together is what I think about. It is so important. So we are very excited for what we've accomplished, but only because it's giving us the chance to do that much more. And it's with all of you. So I love, Jen, when you start these meetings and you get excited about people's faces appearing, and I think we all do. And so we just thank you very much, and support us if you can, but keep up the good work, and let's be excited about next year. But first, a lot of stuff going on now. So Jen, thank you.
Welcome. Susan, do you have any updates you'd like to give for the affiliate network?
Just a quick follow-up that the affiliate network continues to grow, and we're super excited about the members that we're adding to the network. And to follow Tom is thankfulness for all of you and the hard work that's been done through this past year, through advocacy, and then also through being the hands and feet in the neighborhoods, meeting the needs of the people that you come in contact with. We're very grateful to be able to partner with you, and we're looking for a fabulous year in 2024 and what we're going to accomplish through the FASD United Network.
Thank you. And I agree. I mirror the thanks that, you know, all this time, effort, and energy that people have put into policy work this last year and over the last 3 years. You know, that is giving, and that gift that you've given of your own time when so many of you have so little of it, it is just incredible, and just really appreciate that. We do still have a few of the holiday ornaments. These are a great way to connect with the legislator, to say thanks for something they've done over the year, raise awareness, just get a very subtle little FASD message out to anyone you might need to during the holiday season. And like I said, there are still a few available if you want to order those on our website. Our very exciting news in the organization is that after, and I don't know, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong on this, maybe 20 years of being in the same shabby chic up 5 flights of stairs facility in Georgetown in DC. We are moving. The owner of the building sold the building, and we were fortunate enough to find a new built out space and negotiated really hard on the lease, and it's not costing hardly anything more per month. So it's a very cost effective move, which is something I'm concerned about. And our staff in DC and our home will be in a nice new ADA accessible space that is just going to be a lot more productive for us. So that's happening in January, and we'll send out lots of reminders. I just wanted to put it on your radar that if you're ever sending something to FASD United, we're going to have a new address in January, and throughout the month of December, while the old place is gone and the new place is being built out, most of the DC staff is working from home. So we're going to try and be as responsive as possible, but it's just a little bit of a switch for us. And it's a big move given that we've been in the old location for so many years. But I can tell you that our workers' compensation probably wouldn't have handled me walking up 5 flights of stairs with my suitcase every time I'm in town any longer. So I'm very grateful for our ability to move into a new home.
And Jen, that is the courtyard. When Jen and I were out there, we knew the address and we couldn't get in, but we went into the building, and I love that courtyard, and I'm hoping that maybe, you know, we could do some kind of reception out there in that courtyard. It's beautiful.
There is a larger conference room, so we can have some of our smaller meetings there if we need to. Like, it's just a much more adaptable space for where we are now as a movement, as a community, and as an organization. And yeah, the exterior courtyard space is great. It's easier to get to. Your taxi drivers won't be swearing at you when you ask them to drop you off in front of it on a busy street. Like, all the best things. So quite thrilled. And special thanks to Chris for scoping out that site and finding it. So I really appreciate that. Super excited. Coming up in April, obviously, is the 9th International Research Conference on Adolescents and Adults with Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder. Say that 10 times fast. The agenda is almost done. It'll probably be out next week. As will the registration and a call for poster abstracts. So keep your eyes on your weekly roundup, keep your eyes on your email. We'll have all kinds of information out there. The hotel block is already open. So if you want to book your hotel now, because there's limited space under the hotel block, I would suggest doing that. Dates are April 11th through 14th. The pre-conference is on the 11th, and then the 12th, 13th, 14th is the main conference, but the pre-conference is going to be spectacular. There is a session on memory and FASD, a full day session looking at the different aspects on how memory impacts FASD and FASD impacts memory, and how to work within that sphere. And then an entire day-long session as your other choice for that day on justice and FASD, and different aspects of the legal system and justice and how that relates to FASD. So just super excited about where that's going and how that's coming along. And I'll look to have more information in the coming months on, you know, specific speakers or sessions that might be of interest to you. So back at the Respect Act, the reason why we're here today. And for any of you, and I don't know that there's anybody really new on the call, but it's our reauthorization bill, reauthorizing the Center for Excellence, and then building FASD state and tribal systems, sending funding to states to begin to look at their existing infrastructure and put FASD, give FASD a seat at the table. Put FASD in there, because so many times we've talked about that, how FASD needs a seat at the table. Where's our seat? And this is a funding mechanism to help us pull up that chair and grab that seat that's already ours. So given that we had a new House Speaker, they have put through a continuing resolution and they're at a little bit of a stalemate right now in the House. The House was released early. There's just not a lot happening right now. We, Susan and I, and we'll talk about this a little later on, we did have some really great meetings when we were there in early November. Seems like the month of November has lasted 10 years. It's been a very busy month. But we are still on smack dab on step 5. We are so ready to be heard in committee, we can't even handle it. We're still kind of stuck in this position. And again, we have until December of 2024 to get all the way over to step 9. So, you know, this is not a negative thing. We are way further ahead than we were last legislative session in terms of co-sponsors and in terms of where the bill is. But I always like to show this just to give it an overview of where we're at. So what's happened in November? We've had a couple of new co-sponsors. We now have the same number of co-sponsors in the Senate as we had in all of the 117th legislative session. So what that means is any new legislators we add on the Senate side are gravy above and beyond, and I'm not saying gravy, they're super valuable, above and beyond the Senate co-sponsors we had last year or last legislative session. Because last legislative session we had 10 co-sponsors in the Senate and 74 in the House. And so we've got some work to do and some room to grow in the House, but something that we noted this morning is that last leg session we had I believe 11 Republican co-sponsors in the House, and we are already up to 6 this leg session. So we're making headway. It might not feel like it. It might not feel as frenzied or as energetic as it was last leg session, but we've done a lot of the groundwork. So we're able to, we're gathering more, and that's kind of fantastic.
Well, and getting Fluger
was huge. Yeah.
huge.
So thank you, Texas. Woot woot.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's
yeah. And definitely, you know, another thing that's been helping is getting the support of endorsements. There's been a lot of work on that and a lot of endorsements coming in. The American Academy of Pediatrics actually went so far as to endorse and write a letter of endorsement that can be helpful in some of our outreach. So that also happened in November. So we've had some big wins in the month.
yeah, and I'll have to say the staff were very impressed with that letter.
Yeah.
Well, we heard from the Senate side, they were very, very happy with that.
Yeah. So Susan and I did head to DC early November, and the goal with that was to, before this last push at the end of the year where sometimes big package bills go through, just make sure that our bill was in the perfect position that if there was a package bill or a vehicle bill that was going anywhere, Support Act or anything else, our bill was in the best possible position to get there. Additionally, I went and met with the AUCD Lind FASD Special Interest Group at their conference and attended the AUCD conference for a day to, you know, talk about collaboration and how we can work together. And then attended, Susan and I attended a bunch of meetings on our own, and then also attended a bunch of meetings with the group from Louisiana Lind. I can tell you that I was so impressed by their ability to advocate with their lawmakers. We had a fantastic meeting with Kathy McMorris Rogers' office, and she chairs the Energy and Commerce Health Subcommittee, she chairs the Energy and Commerce Committee.
The committee,
The full committee. And we met with her staff and really worked through a game plan because the Support Act has already passed. So the FASD Respect Act has been included in the language of the Support Act marker bill that Senator Cassidy has done in Louisiana. It is going into Senator Sanders' marker bill in the House, or sorry, in the Senate, of the Support Act, and the Support Act has already passed through the House. So the House can't do anything else to add the FASD Respect Act into the Support Act. But what they can do is when the Support Act comes through the Senate and it has the FASD Respect Act language in it, and it doesn't match up with the Support Act that the House passed, the House cannot object to that. And that's what we want. We want the House to not object to the FASD Respect Act being in there, where they call that in conference. So when the bill goes to conference, we want them to not object to the Respect Act being in there. And we worked with McMorris Rogers' office on a path forward for that. And explained the situation, had a really great conversation there. So really tried to pave the way for when that happens, we don't get blockers. We don't have a Senator Lee moment from last year.
Yeah. And I'll have to say, when we first started that meeting with her, she seemed a little cool, but as we, I don't know what she was expecting from our meeting, but she really warmed up and was very interested in what was going on in the Senate with the Support Act, because there was a little, well, and it hasn't been officially put in by Sanders. I think over Klobuchar's dead body, it's going to be in there. She keeps bugging him about it. So, but I think there was a while because Bernie had kind of stalled a lot of things in that committee, the Help Committee in the Senate, because of what was it, Jen? Some prescription drug stuff. And so that's why they've not really moved in the House side with the support reauthorization. It passed out of their committee and then it had to go to Judiciary because there were some judiciary provisions, and now it's just waiting. And then what happened was, as we all know, the speaker fiasco. And I have to say, when we were there, it was really, it was very disorganized, and the Senate was a nice, peaceful place to be.
Yeah, the House side felt very chaotic, and even the staffers in the House were talking about how chaotic it felt. And the staffers in the Senate from both parties were talking about that too. So it was just kind of fascinating to see that piece. But we finished up some really great meetings on the House side. And again, this is where getting co-sponsors for the FASD Respect Act is really going to help us, because when that bill goes to conference, when the Support Act goes to conference, if they see that the FASD Respect Act provisions and that our bill, the FASD Respect Act, has numerous co-sponsors, it's one less hurdle that we need to go over in order for that to be kept in the Support Act provisions. So then we moved over to the Senate side, and again had some really great meetings. I think that, some messaging we got back in September was that Republicans weren't going to sign on to any new bills that had any spending attached to them. That appears to have loosened up. We're not seeing that or hearing that language anymore. So I think that was something they were doing kind of prior to a continuing resolution, and that's opened up a bit now. It's politics. They call it that for a reason. And so on the Senate side, we met jointly with Senator Murkowski and Senator Klobuchar's office, and they have the pathway laid for the Respect Act to definitely be entered into Senator Sanders' marker bill for the Support Act. And they really were just waiting for Senator Sanders to move on his version of the Support Act so they could get that through the Help Committee. And there's a little dysfunction in the Help Committee right now. So we're working through that piece. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do to make those committees function more efficiently. All we can do is focus on getting co-sponsors and keeping it top of mind. And so that really was the take-home message, is that we need to continue working on co-sponsors for the FASD Respect Act. That's the big thing. If there comes a push for getting the Support Act pushed through, we will be sure to flag that and let you know. But FASD Respect Act co-sponsors exactly what we've been doing. We know how to do this. we're good at it. And I mean the collective we, everybody in this room, we're good at it. We just need to keep at it. So,
And Jen, I don't know if there's anybody here from Alabama. That we ended our, what was it, that on Wednesday with our meetings with the new senator from
oh, Katie Britt from Alabama. Yeah.
from Alabama. Yeah, she's very young, 40 or 41 years old, just newly elected, took Senator Shelby's position, and she we were standing out in the hall and she came by. I didn't know it was a senator, and she liked, you can see my backpack, and she liked my backpack. But her health LA this was at 5 o'clock, on a Wednesday afternoon. She met with us, and we had no constituent. Jen, you want to talk about how we got that meeting, but she's on appropriations, and that's why I wanted to mention it. She says, whatever help you can give us, she's an R in appropriations, she will help us do that. But this is where having advocates, Jen, you want to talk about the Alabama constituent that
Yeah, so there's a constituent in Alabama who set a meeting for us with their senator when we were in DC, and it really helped to have that personal connection with the constituent leading the way there. And it was fascinating because Susan mentioned earlier when we met with Kathy McMorris Rogers' staff, she was very cold up front. And when you could see her loosen up when we started talking about the procedure and the mechanics of the bill. She didn't want to hear anything about personal experience. Whereas the senator from Alabama, her staff really wanted that personal story and personal connection. And it was just a good reminder that we have to kind of follow a trajectory with our staffers as we get to know them. And at first, it's the personal stories, it's the living experience, it's conveying why this is important to their local constituency. But as we get to know them more, it really is going to be more about the mechanics of the bill and the issue itself. And so it was just a good reminder for me, and I think for all of us, that we need to know where we are in the process of relationship building with those legislators, in order to be able to communicate effectively and make sure that our message is hitting the mark with them, and we're not just continuing on with our living experience if that's not where they're at. So,
good point.
but it was all in all, it was time well spent. We walked 5 miles the first day. So it was similar to a Disneyland trip. If you haven't been to the Capitol, it's huge. And we were running around to meetings. We had back-to-back meetings. It was a really time and effort well spent. So I'm happy to report back on that. So our maps have changed slightly then, just looking at where we have strongholds of meetings and support. And I believe we'll have some additional ones to add into this map. But if you look at areas on the Senate side where we don't have anybody colored in yet, this is a great place to start, right? And if there's any that are missing that should be on this map, please let Chris know, Chris Melfi know, and he'll get them added in. And then on the House side, areas in yellow are sponsor, areas in blue are meetings. So there's a few states that we haven't quite touched yet. Although I will say, I know there's one we just added on in Oregon, like I think right after Chris did these maps. So if you know people in states where maybe these meetings haven't taken place, or you have connections to those states, these would be great ones to hit. I look at like Arkansas, they completely got theirs filled up, right? California's done a ton of work, keeping in mind that some of California's districts show up so small that you couldn't even see them unless you zoomed in, 50 times there. But we've had a lot of good work happen. And I, like I said, I'm very thankful for that. So shifting topics slightly, or maybe rather abruptly, key take homes for the FASD Respect Act is we want to continue co-sponsors. So a lot of your members are going to be back in district in December. Great time to meet with them when they're in district, and then also set up meetings if you've met with them and they haven't co-sponsored. Set up a second meeting with them. Let's talk to them about it again, because their minds and their hearts and their political parties focus might have shifted slightly, and so you may be able to get more traction now than you did before. But we wanted to talk specifically about congressionally directed spending because this is a great opportunity for many of you. So raise your hand, give a show of hands if you are affiliated with a nonprofit or an agency in your state that needs funds to be able to expand your work. Right, quite a few, and quite a few who's I know, I see your dance, Carl. Quite a few whose cameras are off too are the same way, right? And so congressionally directed spending is one way to get some funding. And so we're going to give you some examples and kind of talk about what that is and how that works. So what it is, and it's also known as earmarks. Members of Congress can set aside a certain percentage of federal funds that can do projects or be earmarked for projects in their states. Typically, it's done at the first of the year, usually closing by March, and you submit just like a grant proposal, right, to the congressional office. There's usually a form on their website, and you fill out that form and put in your request for what you'd like to accomplish in the state that year. So it needs to be done by a state organization. It needs to take place in state. And then typically they fall under certain funding categories, and there's different rules for the House and Senate, and then they'll lay that out on their website, which ones you can, which categories you can submit expenses under, or you can submit a spending request under. Not all of the members participate. Some of the more fiscally conservative members will not participate. I know in the House, they had last year, they wouldn't do any spending on health and human services, but in the Senate they did. So there's different rules, and you just kind of have to do the research and look through them to see where those opportunities might apply. But, you know, 15.3 billion are spent in congressionally directed funding every year.
Well, that was in 2020, in FY 2023. So, and that's the number that was funded. So it'll vary. And that goes into the you know, and not everyone that's applied for, you know, they usually the more senior members get more than freshman members, and Mike probably has a who's been around for a long time can probably give some words of wisdom on it as well. But that's a lot of money when you, and there was a period of time, Mike, where they got rid of the earmarks, and now they're back, and both Republicans and Democrats put in those requests. So yeah.
So I wanted to give you some examples of what they look like. And I don't know why my font changed on this, so I got to go back. Go forward. I got to apologize. For those of you that cannot read it, it's Book Up Summer, requested by U.S. Senator Maria Cantwell, Washington State. And so the Page Ahead Children's Literacy Program requested $300,000 for low-income school children to choose books and go to a literacy night where they learn about literacy. So that's the kind of request. Now, can you see where a request in your state for perhaps information on FASD and an FASD information session training or training or webinar could fit into that particular model? I see it. In Louisiana, Senator Cassidy requested or had a request for Mercy Family Center funding mental health and other supportive services for $1 million, right? That's another kind of request that you could do. So do you have a diagnostic clinic in your state that needs added capacity? Could you partner with them to put in a request for expansion of diagnostic capacity? Do you have a therapeutic center that needs to expand? Do you want to add FASD training to your wraparound services in your state? You know, what kind of ideas can you come up with in your state that could be would align with congressionally directed spending? Because I think a lot of times as smaller nonprofits, we think of, well, we just need money to run our organization. So it doesn't matter, like, just give us money, just give us money. We need money. We need funding. And I hear this over and over and over from multiple organizations, both in the FASD world and outside of the FASD world. And the problem is people aren't going to give you money just to give you money. You know, there's the Bill and Melinda Gates out there. There's, you know, like, there are a few people in the world that are going to do that. But most funding goes for projects. What are they funding? What is it going to accomplish? What problem is it going to solve in your community, right? So this is where we need to be thinking as a community very strategically in terms of, you know, how can we get funding? And then what is that funding going to do to further the cause? So here's what you can do. First, step number one, which members in your state participate in congressionally directed spending? Do you have a relationship with them? I wouldn't go out now and be like, oh, hey, I know you got congressionally directed spending coming up and I want to get to know you and talk to you about FASD. It wouldn't work like that, right? These are members that you've been working on with the FASD Respect Act, perhaps. These are members that you've had multiple meetings with, or members that maybe have an alignment with, you know, maybe they have a focus on mental health. Maybe they have a focus on foster care. Maybe they have a focus on adoption. Find some form of alignment with them and do your research. Really do your research there. And then the next thing you need to be doing, and because these requests open up in January, this is a now situation. Sit down, figure out the who, do your research on the who, and then plan, right? What is your plan? Write out your request now. What problems is it going to solve? What other organizations in your community could you collaborate with? Because they love collaborations. Can you partner with a mental health agency? Can you partner with an area hospital? Can you partner with a state agency? Can you partner with a county board of health? Who can you partner with? And then if you can't find somebody to partner with, what specifically are you tackling? What are you trying to do? What measurable objectives are you trying to get to? And write those down. Have your entire proposal written out before January when it opens up. Think this through. If you need to create a task force within your organization to work on that, great, do that. But you know, and if you don't have a relationship with a lawmaker yet that is solid enough, you know, it's okay to still submit one. Just realize you might not get approved, because not everyone that gets submitted gets approved. You might decide, hey, no, we need more planning on this. We're going to wait and apply next year, and we're going to work on our relationship with that legislator this year, right? The Respect Act and appropriations are not mutually exclusive. So you can be working on advocacy for the FASD Respect Act, while at the same time building those relationships that later can help lend itself to getting some congressionally directed spending. So step number 3, there is no wiggle room on this. Submit your requests on time and submit them early. If they're getting flooded with requests, like, we don't know, right? Give yourself the best opportunity. Have it already written out, have it already reviewed by somebody else. If you need some help, you know, you can collaborate with another affiliate in another state. You can, you know, you can ask us to proofread it for you, but really be thinking through and have that plan solid before they announce that applications are open. And that's a really key piece that I think sometimes gets forgotten. We get reactive. So this year we're going to be very proactive in, let's think about this now, right? And 1 month isn't a ton of time. And technically you have until March to apply, but let's start thinking about this. Let's start taking those active steps. So step number 1, I would make a list of who all your legislators are in your state, right? And you can typically only apply in district. So if you are doing a program in Houston, Texas, you would not be applying for somebody in Fort Worth, Texas's congressionally directed bidding, right? So where you have the program matters, where it's housed matters, where your organization is based matters. So take that into account when you're writing out, you know, who you may want to apply with. You can apply with both your senators for the same thing, right? That's not a problem either. And then make sure your plan is really solid. If it's more training, what training is it into what end? How will it be measured? How will success be measured? How will growth be measured? What will that do for your state, right? If it's increasing diagnostic capacity, you know, how will that be done? What's the need? What's the current diagnostic capacity in the state? So really, like, look at having those numbers available. So any questions on this so far? I know I've kind of thrown a lot of word salad out on it, and I want to make sure that I'm addressing any questions as they come up. Yeah, Kathy.
Could you put the same proposal into both a congressional person and to the senators? Or does
Mike?
it have to be different?
Mike or Tom, do you want to talk about what might happen with that?
Yeah, I was waiting for Mike, and I know he'll probably have something to add here, but essentially, yes. But keep in mind what Jen said, that it's a bit different in each chamber. And so we'll have to look at that. And it could have changed even from this previous spring. So we do have to look and see which accounts are available. And what the rules are regarding. They even use different terms in each chamber. So that's a key piece. I do want to take another second to emphasize one of points that Jen made, which is FASD United can support you through this. So if you say, you know, this all sounds great, I don't have the foggiest notion about how to get going with this. I see the instructions and everything. I'm still not sure. We can help you. And we've had some successes in each phase of this. And there's even a chance where you could partner with FASD United, the national organization, by bringing additional expertise, partnerships, and contacts, which could help to strengthen your proposal, and including getting those folks to endorse the proposal, so that there is a greater chance that your member or members could support it. So definitely keep that in mind.
I'll just add that a ditto what Tom said. The things that you can take advantage of, though, because in the Hawaii delegation, for example, there's one senator and he's on appropriations, and there's a member of Congress. I mean not a member of Congress, but a U.S. representative who's also on appropriations on the House side. So yes, whenever you can, you want both of them to get some format of your request. And just like Tom said, it might be different, but generally within the delegation, they try to coordinate that, even where there's a cross pollination of political parties, if you will, because they're trying to ultimately get money back to the state for a state program. So I would definitely start with, by looking it up. Tom said, maybe different words, and also they're not all due at the same time. Some of them may be due, I don't know, pick a date, 21 March 21, and some will be April 15th. You've got to get online, get on their thing for appropriations requests, and make sure that you submitted by that date, because once that time is passed, your time is passed at that point. Meet the suspenses.
That was a great question, Kathy. Thank you. Any other questions? Meanwhile, everybody is Googling their senators and their appropriations requests. The good news is that typically they will house the last couple of years' requests on their website, so you can get a feel for what kinds of things are being asked for in your state. And usually their press releases will show which ones they got approved, right? So take some time and do some research first. Really think out your program. Do you want to add a family navigator? Could you partner with FASD United and add a state-specific family navigator to your state? Would that be an option? You know, what are the things that you could do that would bring value to your organization, bring value to your state, and bring value to the community? So, awesome. Okay, well, that was much quicker than I thought it would be. So you all are picking up very quickly on that one. So thank you. The other thing we wanted to touch on briefly was really thinking forward for state advocacy for 2024. What are the types of things, because most of you, again, are affiliated with a state organization. What can you do in your state to foster legislative outreach and legislation that's going to help you take advantage of the funding that can come from the passage of the FASD Respect Act? So how can you set yourself up in the best possible position as a state and as an organization to be able to take advantage of that? How can you move things forward in your own state? So we just did a quick little outline here of just some ideas to start with, some things to start doing now. Most of you, if you're involved in an organization, again, you're in your planning mode right now. You're in your budgeting mode, right? You're thinking forward and figuring out what you're going to do in the next year. And so I would really kind of look at it in this in the next year, sorry, in this particular order. You know, here's how we can help us get a seat at the table. Collaborate. You know, how many other disability groups in the state have you reached out to? Are you meeting with them? Have you set up meetings with them? Is there legislation that with a minor tweak they're working on? You know, if you gave it a minor tweak and added FASD or prenatal substance exposure, you know, one word to their legislation, it would greatly benefit you. That's low-hanging fruit. Let's have those conversations and have those meetings. The other thing to consider is, you know, can you do a Hill Day or a briefing? Could your organization do that? We can support you with that, and we want to support you with that. So, you know, if that's something you want to look at for 2024, now's the time to start thinking about it. Find out, you know, what are the rules behind that in your state? Do you need to have a permit? Do you need to book a room at the Capitol? What's the cost associated with that? Is there a cost associated with that? You know, are you going to book the appointments with the legislators, or are you going to have people do that on their own? Do you need to have some rah-rah meetings beforehand and get people jazzed up about doing it and excited about doing it? Start building out that plan. The next thing is to find your legislative champions. So sometimes you're going to find those through doing your Hill Days. Sometimes you'll find those by inviting all your legislators to, there's an outfit in Washington State that's been really successful with this, actually, where Hope Rising Clinic, they'll run a webinar and they will invite all the legislators to come to a briefing. The ones that show up are on their short list to be champions. The ones that stay showing up are their champions, and they were successful in getting legislation put through this last session because of that, because they were doing webinars as opposed, and they did a Hill Day too, but the webinars was really where they got the champions from. So there's all kinds of different ways to go about it, but like Susan quotes her husband quite regularly, if you don't have a plan, any road will get you there. Is that the right quote, Susan?
Yeah, it's kind of from Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Yeah. So, but that's the point. Like, if you don't have that plan, you're not going to know where you're going, right? So now is the time to sit down and start planning. And then finally, we want to promote legislation. And so any legislation that would benefit individuals with FASD or provide funding for programs that would benefit individuals with FASD is where we want to be promoting it. And that could be legislation that your champions come up with. That could be, and I apologize in advance for not having a spoiler slide for this. We will next month be rolling out draft legislation that ties into the RESPECT Act. So in order to set yourself up well to get funding from the RESPECT Act, it would be helpful to have legislation like this passed. Some states have already done that. Some states have already had it for forever, but Susan's committed. We'll have some draft legislation ready for you for next month to be able to see if you can find a champion and shop it around. Your champions are probably going to take one look at the legislation and rewrite the whole thing. That's okay, right? You're giving them a base to start off of. You're making it easy for them to do their job and support you. And that's really what we want. So some trends that we're seeing in terms of legislation are, again, the removal of IQ as a determining factor for waiver services in states. So that's something that we as FASD advocates can definitely get behind. So if there's an organization that's pushing for that, absolutely, we want to support that, right? Because many of our folks cannot get waiver services because their IQ is too high, right? So that's legislation we want to help and promote. Having a standard definition of disability that meets the federal requirements. That's another one we're seeing. Changing the state's definition of disability to match the federal definition. We're supportive of that because, again, that would include more people with FASD, right? Anything about fully funding special education. That's another one that would really help our population. We can get behind that. So just be thinking kind of out of the box, looking outside even of the FASD lens. Where can we get involved? Where can we claim a seat at the table so that we can start expanding what's available to people with FASD and expand awareness from that perspective? Any questions on the state advocacy ideas or any thoughts on that? Any exciting things that you're doing in your own state or thinking of doing in your own state that you might want to collaborate with another state on so you're sharing the load? And please don't everybody talk at once.
Yeah, well, and I want to add on the RESPECT Act, and this is not in the language as introduced. It was inadvertently left out. There's two sections that give guidance to the Secretary of HHS in the request for proposal to have a designation of an individual to serve as an FASD state or tribal coordinator, that could be part of. She could require, he or she, whoever it is at the time, could require an application to have that, or a description of an advisory committee that would develop a state or tribal strategic plan. So if you, and I know there's been a lot of comment, well, we can't do it until the RESPECT Act passes. Well, I think you can start the planning and plant the seeds, and we'll provide the guidance with the template. Because if you don't, because once the FASD RESPECT Act passes, we may not have a lot of time for you to do that. So I think it really will be good to start that process. We don't know, when it's going to pass. We don't know when the appropriations and when they're going to do RFPs. But I think the planning is appropriate right now, and it's also going to be. The template will allow the use of perhaps other federal funds through CAPTA to use in this manner to provide that. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be keyed to the RESPECT Act. It's other federal funds that might be related, where they could use some of that funding for this. So yes, I have promised Jen, I'm going to have that for you next month.
So just by a show of hands, how many of you are interested in working on getting some congressionally directed spending into your state? Okay. How many of you were planning on doing that before this call? Couple, right? So yeah, I'm glad we brought this up because I originally was thinking, okay, does everybody know about this? And yeah, so it looks like there were a few that this might be really helpful for. Fantastic. And is there any interest, and you can, and I apologize, I haven't really been monitoring the chat like I usually do. I know Chris is probably all over this. And a question came up in the chat, does an organization have to be a nonprofit to apply for the congressional spending? Mike, do you happen to know the answer to that? Or Tom, do you know the answer to that one? I don't think they.
Well, you cannot be a for-profit entity. The
Okay.
answer, so but I think some, for instance, state entities may be eligible. That I'm not sure, but certainly a nonprofit is eligible.
Yeah.
Well, and I know when I've looked at the ones that Klobuchar and Smith senators, it can be like Hennepin County in collaboration with a nonprofit or just on their own. And sometimes it's a capital expenditures and, so I think you just have to look at the details for each, because they get guidance from from the appropriations committee too, as to what is appropriate and what's not. So if you're not a nonprofit, maybe work, figuring out who your partners could be that are nonprofits or state or local county.
Yeah.
Start building those relationships.
Your county health commissioners are really great resources in this. I know in California there's a Department of Health. Rachel, refresh my memory. I know there's a Department of Health that was getting getting some funding to be able to work on FASD. So there's definitely places that you can approach that would do that, and organizations, not just FASD specific organizations that you can approach with that. A question was asked earlier in the chat about who at FASD United can help with these. Definitely I can help where I can. Tom has definitely more experience with this and has helped out in the past. So direct him to Tom and I, and we can do what we can to help you there. It's not a super painful process. It's not this huge grant application like an IAAA grant or something like that. It's a lot easier than you think. It's kind of like that, setting up that first meeting to meet with your 2 senators and your rep, where you don't know what to say and you don't know how to say it and you don't know how to phrase it and what exactly am I asking for? It's kind of like that. Once you do it once you see the form, it's a lot easier than you think. So just really want to encourage you to go for that. And great point you made in the chat there, Rachel, too, about state professional organizations are a great possibility. Do you have a state organization of social workers that might be willing to do something? Yeah, definitely a good opportunity there. So unless there are any other questions, I just want to remind you that together we can do this. Again, I am so incredibly grateful and thankful for the gift of time that you all have given, both in your advocacy and in coming to these meetings month after month. Really appreciate it, and know that that is a method of giving that it is invaluable. Yeah.
I think back, Jen, when we first started this and where we were in this, and how all of our advocates in the states have blossomed, and it's been incredible. And I also want to thank everybody. It's and we've only just begun.
And we promise we won't sing that.
No, no. we
Kumbaya.
won't.
Well, Carl, I am happy to be here and nobody has to force me to say it.
Yeah, right. Yes. I have a quick update too and give somebody some tips. If you're not able to get a meeting with your congressional delegation, write a letter to your editor of your newspaper. We tried for 4 months to get a meeting with Senator Hoeven or his staff. Last week, I published a letter to the editor in the Bismarck Tribune. Monday, I scored a meeting with Senator Hoeven's staff that will happen in an hour and a half. So sometimes you have to go outside of the chain of command to make things happen, but it will happen. So yeah, I was hoping that the letter would have an impact, and it did. So,
Does that just happen in North Dakota, Carl?
I don't know. I would hope not, but it did happen here. So yeah, I got an email from Ty Kennedy with a lot of apologies about not returning any of my contacts and all of that jazz. And then he said, "Can you meet Wednesday at 3:30 your time?" And I said, "Yeah, we can do that." So yeah, we're gonna make that happen. So I don't know if he'll sign on or not, but we're sure gonna give it a shot.
Well, I think
Esther.
having the meeting is the first step to that. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Just be humble. You got them. I'll tell you what, having been Congressman Young's chief of staff, we didn't respond to the constituents. And we didn't get them meetings and everything else. I guarantee you I got an earful. So a big earful. So yeah, because especially in an election year, I mean, it shouldn't matter, but you got an election year coming up, right? And they're going to be very interested in, they have to be seen as responsive. That's the first thing they need to be seen as. So good for you. Way to go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all. If there are any of you who are attending the Vancouver conference and the Seattle conference, the research conference in Seattle, and have some sort of computer literacy, and you maybe are attending with your adolescent or adult with FASD, and maybe aren't as interested in going to the sessions, but would like a little bit of extra funding while you're there. We do need to, and we'll be publishing a job advertisement for temporary help to work at registration at the conference. Unfortunately, you would not be able to enjoy the conference because you'd be there working, doing registration. But if that is a way to be there and help fund some of your travel to be there, I just wanted to throw it out there as an option.
My wife is volunteering for that role. If when the time comes, I'll have her put in an email. But yeah, she has no interest in really attending the conference itself, but she wants to go and see all the people.
So just giving a heads up there, keep an eye out on our website. We'll have it posted. And if you'd like to attend in that capacity, I encourage you to apply. So thank you all. We will see you just the week before Christmas. Week before or week after? Hang on. Let me double.
After.
Yeah, week after Christmas. My apologies. So we will see you just after Christmas, and I hope you all have a very happy holidays.